Hey folks, welcome to Tyrdom. So today I'm going to talk about something I find absolutely fascinating. For most people who are interested in Norse mythology, and even not that interested, most people have heard about the Eddas. And the Eddas is one of those really vital puzzle pieces we have to describe that old ancient history. And it's made out of two parts, the prose Eddas and the Poetic Eddas. But what many people don't know is that the Eddas are incomplete. Yes, you heard it right. The Eddas are incomplete, and the most famous example is the document Codex Regius, I think it's in English at least. Codex Regius. And in that original, air quote, document, it's obvious that 8 pages are missing. Right in the middle, you could say. And 8 times 2, since it was hand-drawn on each page, equals 16 page missing. And it's pretty evident that these pages has been torn out on this version of the Eddas. And this is right in the mythological parts of the Edda as well. And you can get the idea that someone wanted this to disappear. And I will elaborate on why I think this happened. And my personal belief is that this vanishing, altering of history has something to do with Tyr. So why do I think Tyr is involved in this? Well, you have to understand, if we begin with the name Tyr itself, it's a very, very old name. And it's basically translates to God in all Germanic religions, basically. And much evidence points to that Tyr was the OG of the gods, basically. There are very many similarities to ancient Greece and Italy and Zeus, Deus. And it's believed that Tyr was much, much more important prior to the age that we refer to as the Viking Age. And if we look about what we know about Tyr from the Eddas, for example, we know that he's the god of war, he's the god of law, oaths, sacrifice, and maybe even cosmic order. And if we look at the surviving Eddas we have today, this is strangely reduced. And we have to understand that the knowledge we have today is not only based on the Eddas, it's built on the Icelandic sagas, the Eddas, and rune stones, and what do we call it? Burials and things of that nature. So it's a puzzle with different pieces from different points at time. But the Eddas are in a way very complete, since it tells a story about the gods and the life at that particular time in story and poem form. So it's a very important document for that sake. But yeah, I do have a sneaking suspicion that since these pages were basically ripped out of the mythological part of the Eddas, and this scientists are pretty sure about, since it's spot in that particular section of the Eddas. And I have an idea why this happened, So what we have to remember is that today's Edda has been copied many times, and in particular it has been copied by Christian scribes, and this all took part at around the 1200s. And I think Tyr became problematic for them, since he was a god of truth and sacred oaths. He sacrificed himself, to the Fenriswolf, to bind him. And there was just too many parallels to the Christian God that kind of made the Abrahamic God look bad. And they were too similar, basically. And Tyr stood out as too good. Because oftentimes when we read Christian narratives about the Vikings or the Norse, they are, either they compared the Norse gods to, they're very human-like, to downplay them. And I get it, they had a mission, they wanted to pass on the knowledge and the history, but not in a way that people started to get attracted to it again, rather than as a time capsule, but with slightly altered, meaning. And I do believe that in this time, Tyr was actually censored from the Eddas. That's my belief after having thought about this unproportionately long time, I think that since it's in this particular crescendo of the Edda, I do suspect that Tyr was involved. Because if you read the Eddas, he's really not named that many times in the Eddas. It's, a bit here, a bit there. Meanwhile, Odin and Thor and Vidar and all those other deities are mentioned quite frivolously. But I do think that since we lack these pages, we kind of miss some explanations from the Eddas about, honor and obligation, order versus chaos, and the cost of not keeping your word. I do suspect that we would find out more about that there, and also about sacrifice. Because as you know, the Abrahamic God sacrificed himself for humanity, just like Tyr did, actually. And but by losing these insights, we kind of lost the philosophical backbone in the story as well. And for you who have read it, like I have done many times, you kind of get the feeling that it feels like islands of information rather than a story arc. And I think there's a real reason for that. And yeah, but you know me, I'm not going to sit here and complain about it. I see it as a challenge, and just like today, we can, if we look at the modern times today, it's a very fragmented time. If you think about it, there's a lot of different information floating around. It's hard to get, the story arc that I referenced to, even in the modern times. And I kind of get the same feeling about the now time that I get when I read the Eddas, about that, narrative going through time. And like I said, I'm not going to complain about it, but I do think that we have a sort of a chance to rebuild this worldview ourselves, because by implementing these things I so often talk about here on this channel, strength, responsibility, discipline, truth, And all those things we know that Tyr, for example, embodied, I do think we can make the incomplete Edda more complete by living it, if that makes sense. And even though 16 pages were lost in the Eddas, and you know, one thing I have to just move back to, just to give you some context here. You know, creating books and documents at this particular time, this was long time before the printing press. You have to understand that a book didn't just disappear or break because they were seen as very, very valuable. So obviously this was done with intent. And this intent was to censor something they didn't want us to know. And these 16 pages are gone. I have laid out my own theory about what this was all about. You know, the blind spot about Tyr. But this could have been anything else, you know. Maybe magical rituals, spiritual rituals, information about gods and false prophets. You know, things that the church didn't want to talk about. So who knows? And even though the pages are lost, I still have faith that we can repair it by actually living it. And I thought about this. Maybe the pages aren't really gone. Maybe it's just a part of our own narrative to fill out those pages. Who knows? I feel that we can rewrite them. We, you know, we are on the right trajectory now, I feel. And if we can fill out some of the gaps, I think we can do something really good with it. Okay, folks. Let me know what you think about this, and let me know what parts you think we missed out in the Eddas. And I'll try to link you to one of the versions of this document, since it has been digitalized a long time ago. It's pretty neat. Okay, folks, have a good one. Talk to you later. Tyrdom out.